There are big changes coming to the Alberta healthcare system. We will chat with Premier Danielle Smith about what to expect, and we'll also chat with the Premier about a Premier's conference in Halifax and some big pushback to the federal government. Health Minister Adriana LaGrange will pop by to weigh in on the healthcare changes and the positive impact this will have on Albertans. Plus, it is hoped that a new designation will help keep Alberta's tech sector booming. Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sawhney will join us for a conversation, and Ministry of Forestry and Parks Todd Loewen will be here to chat about the takeaways from this year's wildfire season. All that and much more to come on the Alberta Update. But as usual, we will begin with the Premier as we welcome in Premier Danielle Smith for a conversation. Good day, Premier. How are things?
Hi, Bruce. Really good.
Excellent. Listen, lots to cover. Some big changes announced this week to Alberta's healthcare system. Premier, you've been talking about the need for this for a long time. So we could probably spend a half an hour on this subject alone, but let's think big picture. What is being done and why does it have to happen?
Well, there's a couple things. One of the things that I noticed when I started taking a look at Alberta Health Services is that they really have become everything when it comes to healthcare. Not only do they set policy, but they also get the lion's share of the money. They're a service provider. They contract out to people and service providers who are their competitors, and then we rely on them to evaluate their own performance. That doesn't make sense in any other sector. I mean, imagine if McDonald's dictated to Wendy's where they would operate and how they would operate, or if Coke dictated to Pepsi. Like there's certain things that need to be operated separately for a good reason. So there are a number of functions that we believe are the function of the health ministry. So policy and how we contract, those are things that have to be brought back into the ministry. And Alberta Health Services has to be the very best service provider of the things that they can do really well, which is acute care services, principally at hospitals. And that's what we're doing, is we're refocusing them to being a service provider so that we can build out the other aspects of the system.
Premier, it's safe to say, and I've even heard you say this, all roads lead to the emergency room, don't they? And we know our doctors, our nurses, our frontline workers are fabulous. How will these changes address the fact that they're becoming overwhelmed and make things better?
Well, if you look at the four functional areas that we're now refocusing on, there's a good reason for that. So one of the functional areas is primary care, because if you don't have a family doctor or you don't have a walk-in clinic, something goes wrong, you get an earache or your kid has a fever, you have to go to the emergency room. The other area is mental health. If you have some mental health issue, again, you have to go to an emergency room if you don't have access to another practitioner. Addictions and homelessness, big problems, especially with repeat overdoses, going to the emergency room. As well, we also notice that with continuing care, someone may end up having a fall or a health issue that brings them to hospital, but once they're stabilized, we have to either get them back home with appropriate home care or get them into a long-term care facility. That is not happening very efficiently, and so we've overwhelmed our Alberta Health Services. We have overwhelmed our hospitals and emergency rooms, and by creating a system where everyone has a family doctor that'll be able to take some of the pressure off, creating different points of entry for those who are homeless who need to convalesce. We've already done that with Bridge Healing in Edmonton. New mental health facilities, we're building 5 of them. New recovery communities, we're building 11 of them. That will take that pressure off. And then we'll work more collaboratively with our continuing care providers so that as they have vacancies, we can more efficiently move patients into a more home-like setting. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was aging, I'd want to age in a place that was more like a home than a hospital room. And so those are the things that we'll be working on. And what I hope is that within very short period of time, we're going to see some major functional improvement at our hospitals. And I hope improve the working conditions for all of our hardworking staff.
Absolutely. Look, as you've always said, there's never been a problem with our frontline workers. They are fabulous. It's the system that needs the overhaul. Can you touch on the support that you've received from municipalities? I know some of the healthcare providers, even organizations that represent some of the frontline health care workers.
Well, I'm almost getting a sense of relief that everyone knows that this system hasn't been working for some time. It's become too centralized. Everyone has a story about how AHS management has interfered with a local decision. I mean, the ones I've pointed out and just heard recently about not being able to stock the fridge with ginger ale because somebody determined it was too expensive, so the staff don't get ginger ale in their fridge, or a light that went out in an ambulance, they couldn't run it through a minute loop, so they had to wait 2 days for it to be fixed, or chairs for additional seating taking 3 months to come in. I mean, those things just drive people bananas. So that, I think that's part of the reason. Everybody has one of those experiences, and so we've got the professional nurses who acted as validators yesterday, saying they're looking forward to the changes. The Alberta Medical Association, as you know, we've had a bit of a difficult relationship with the AMA for a number of years. They're happy to work with us. Nurse practitioners are going to play a major role in our primary care reform. We're going to allow them to set up their own private practices and bill the province directly. And so that will be able to take some of that load off. The paramedics and firefighters, in some communities, paramedics and firefighters are cross-trained, so that if somebody do get, a lot of times medical calls, the first vehicle on scene is a firefighting vehicle. And so if we could have paramedics trained on there to be able to answer those calls, it just makes a great deal of sense. Plus, it will allow for our paramedics, I think, to be dispatched in a more effective way. They've been spending way too much time sitting at hospitals, being parked, waiting until their patient is offloaded. So I think people have begun to see that we're making some good progress. We can do so much more, but we need to make some of these structural changes in order to have a true impact.
So much more I could ask you about this, but Health Minister Adriana LaGrange is going to join us in a few minutes, and we'll talk more about it. Let's shift gears a bit. You've had a busy week. You were in Halifax meeting with the Canadian premiers, and unity amongst the premiers when it comes to the carbon tax carve-out, which was given to Atlantic provinces. How was the meeting with the premier's premier, and what is the growing mood with Ottawa?
I should clarify this because I didn't really fully understand this until I became premier, so people might not know this as well. The Council of the Federation is just the premiers. When we have a First Ministers Conference, that includes the Prime Minister. They haven't had a First Ministers Conference since 2018, but the premiers meet all the time, and part of the reason that table works so well is we focus on the things on which we can agree. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a Liberal or an NDP or a Conservative, we do manage to find some common cause, and everybody is frustrated at the federal government intervening in their provincial affairs. Everybody is frustrated at the way the federal government is playing politics to pit one region against the other. I mean, I'm happy that our Atlantic Canadian friends have found a reprieve on the fuel tax, but you know what? They would like everyone to have a reprieve on that fuel tax on home heating as we head into winter. So I think that was part of the reason why you saw that we were united in calling for that. I don't know if the federal government will listen, but it was nice to see that all the provincial premiers agree.
Yeah, I know housing is a major issue for premiers right across the country as well. Did that come up, and is there any consensus about dealing with that issue?
Again, it's one of those issues where I think people are frustrated that the government once again seems to play favorites. You know, kudos to Quebec. They negotiated a deal where they get $900 million, which is roughly equivalent to their population. And they don't allow the federal government to do a workaround and work directly with the municipalities. They have a bill called M30, which basically says if you want to deal with us, you deal through the provincial government. So I've brought that back to my ministry, and I said we need to do the same kind of thing because it's just simply not fair for all of our municipalities. We have pressures all across our province, and it shouldn't be up to the federal government because they've got a cozy relationship with one council over another to play favorites. That's not fair. It's not right. We have pressures everywhere, and these are the decisions that should be worked through on a trilateral basis. So, and I can tell you, I'm surprised to see that made it into the communique. Other provinces are looking at considering the same thing that Quebec is doing. The reason it matters is that the last tranche of cash that came through from CMHC, we got 2.5% of that, even though we're 14% of the population, and we're the fastest growing province in the country and have been for the past year. We haven't seen this level of growth since 1981. So to get a tiny share of the dollars that, remember, we pay dollars into the federal level at a greater rate than anyone else, and then to not have those dollars coming back when we need them, that again is just another example of the federal government playing politics. Not right, not fair, and the premiers called them out on it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hardly equitable, for sure. Listen, just before I let you go, Bill 1, the Taxpayers Protection Amendment Act has passed in the legislature. What does this mean for Albertans?
What it means is that we are providing the certainty to our investment community and to people who move here that their taxes will not be going up unless Albertans choose through a referendum. We already have that policy in place for the sales tax, that if anyone wanted to propose a PST, it would have to be put to the people. Now, if anyone wants to increase rates on personal or business taxes, it would also have to go to the people. And I would say we've demonstrated that reducing taxes can actually increase revenue. The former government, the NDP, they increased the tax rate and they saw a shrinkage in the amount of corporate income tax revenue because businesses fled. We reduced the tax, businesses flocked here, and we ended up with more revenue than ever before. That's the reason I feel confident it will work.
Premier, thank you as always for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's continue our discussion on healthcare. We just spoke with the Premier about some big shifts being made to healthcare in Alberta. The Premier and Health Minister, Adriana LaGrange, announcing a new single healthcare system with 4 specialized areas of focus. This new system will put a much larger emphasis on key areas, and that includes acute care, primary care, continuing care, and mental health and addiction. Take a look at this video now that gives us a review of the new healthcare system.
Albertans deserve reliable health care. That's why Alberta's government is taking action to make healthcare better for Albertans and focus on delivering the best care when and where you need it most. Our new integrated healthcare model focuses on delivering excellence in 4 areas. Primary care, which is the regular care you receive from primary care providers like your family doctor or nurse practitioner. Acute care, which is immediate, short-term medical care for severe or critical health issues, care that is typically provided in hospitals. Continuing care, which supports the health and well-being of individuals living in their own home, a supportive living, or long-term care setting. And mental health and addiction. This change will ensure our frontline healthcare professionals will get the support they need, so they are empowered to provide you with the best care possible. Learn more about how Alberta is refocusing your healthcare system on patient-centered care and provide your feedback at alberta.ca/healthcare.
Minister, thank you for taking the time. As always, we appreciate it. I know how busy you have been.
Well, it's my pleasure, Bruce, and I'm happy to be here with you.
I think the number one question on Albertans' minds right now, what does this mean for my healthcare? So it's such a big announcement, but how will this change things for Alberta families?
Well, for the short term, it doesn't change anything in terms of how they access healthcare. They will still go to their local family doctor or nurse practitioner if they are wanting to see them for any particular reason. If they have an emergency, they'll still go to the emergency room. If they're looking for continuing care, they'll still talk to continuing care providers or mental health and addiction providers for the mental health and addiction portion. But what we're really looking to do is behind the scenes at the governance level, making sure that we have governance structures that are laser focused on improving patient care. I really believe that patients are the customers, and we need to provide better customer service. And we have way too many instances of long wait times, whether it's for surgeries or to get into a certain, to see a certain specialist or doctor. So we want to eliminate that. And we are really working hard to ensure that we're going to have sector-focused areas that they can do better than what they're doing right now.
100%. Listen, let's talk a little bit about these new organizations. How will, say, having a primary care organization improve the care that Albertans receive?
Well, again, just an organization that's really focused on primary care will make sure that we have the right services right across the province. Right now, as was evidenced through the, pardon me, I've been talking so much, so my apologies if I
bet you have, so we'll forgive you. I know how busy you have been.
It's been a whirlwind. I just came from talking to healthcare professionals on a town hall. We had about 2,000 people on our telephone town hall, so that was amazing. But getting back to your question on primary care, We heard through the Modernizing Alberta's Primary Healthcare engagement sessions that we did, and I made an announcement recently on that we need an organizational structure to oversee it because it's very fragmented. It is not coordinated, and so the new primary care organization is really meant to coordinate services and make sure that we have the right resources right across the province. We're going to be very focused on making sure that every Albertan has a primary care provider that they have access to. So that is going to be key as well. So we're really looking to have a coordinating body that can ensure that the services are there for Albertans when they need it and where they need it.
I'll bounce around a little bit, Minister. Continuing care has been a challenge, frankly, for Albertans to navigate. Do you want to touch on that and how maybe a specialized organization will help in that area?
Again, we are setting up an organization that will be laser focused on improving continuing care provisions right across the province. And we know that includes home care. We know that we have an aging population that wants to age in place. So home care, self-managed care, long-term spaces, etc. We need to make sure that that is in place right across the province. Currently, a lot of that work is done through Alberta Health Services. And while Alberta Health Services is a service provider for roughly about 20 to 25% of continuing care spaces, they hold all the contracts with all the other providers. And so we know that that is an inherent conflict of interest that we need to correct. And we also know that when a senior attends, is for whatever reason in hospital and is able to move out into a different type of care, that in Alberta, they tend to stay longer in hospital than anywhere else in Canada. And so that's not acceptable. We need to get our seniors into the right type of care at the right time. And so a continuing care organization to oversee this will provide more streamlined access for Albertans who are aging, and I'm one of them. So I know that at some point in time, I will need these much needed services, and we want to make sure that they're available to all Albertans.
Look, anybody that's spent any time in an emergency room lately knows that the mental health and addictions crisis is real. Pardon me. A lot of people coming into to hospital rooms needing treatment. I assume that's the reason that that this area now is kicked out on its own. Tell me more about that specialized organization. What you hope to accomplish there.
Well, I know that Minister Dan Williams has been working really hard on this since he became the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, and it's something that the previous ministers were working on for the last number of years. It's really to make sure that those services are available to a population that needs them. There has been increased access to virtual mental health and addiction services, as well as many other ways to enter the continuum of care for mental health and addictions, but we know there is more that can be done. And so again, another organization that is very focused on mental health and addictions that can really delve into where the gaps are, how can we fill those gaps, and how can we strategize for the whole province in providing service, which at times is not readily accessible because we have a limited number of healthcare professionals in this field. So again, Minister Williams is working really hard on this.
Let's follow up with one more on healthcare professionals. You just raised it. Look, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, they're doing an exceptional job, but they're overwhelmed. And you know that. The Premier spoke to us about that just a few minutes ago. What will the change mean for them, Minister? How will it impact them, and how will they be better supported?
Well, again, I just want to say that, I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. Our healthcare professionals are amazing. I've been able to tour quite a bit of the province in the last 5 months as the Minister of Health. And even in my previous roles, I know that they are doing a tremendous job. And kudos to them. And we want to support them. We know that oftentimes they're feeling burnt out, that there's a lot of stress, but some of it also is the fact that they don't feel heard. They don't feel like the input that they can give in terms of how we can fix situations, how we can streamline processes, how we can get rid of red tape and bureaucracy is not being heard or accepted. And so we're going to really engage with the front lines. As I indicated on my call with all of the healthcare professionals earlier this morning that took the time to call into the town hall, that we are going to, this is the start of a journey. This is a framework that we've put forward, and we want to build a better healthcare system with them. So I've been engaging with them. I will continue to engage with them. We're going to be talking to their unions as well, and about how we can do better and provide for their mental health and well-being in a more comprehensive way, make their work-life balance better, because of course that also factors into their stress levels. But again, one of our key guiding principles is to really protect the front lines and to give them the resources and supports they need to move forward. We want to keep our front lines healthy, our healthcare professionals healthy, and we also want them to stay working within Alberta, and we want to recruit more of them because we know we have more people coming to Alberta because Alberta's on fire in terms of the number of people that are moving here for job opportunities, to raise their families, and to find a better life. And so we have to provide for all of those scenarios.
All right. Look, big changes ahead. Kudos to you, the Premier, and your government for taking it on. Good luck with it. Thanks for taking some time to talk to us. Adriana LaGrange joining us on the Alberta Update. And for more information on any of this, you can go to alberta.ca/healthcare. Well, as we touched on earlier in the program with the Premier, there's a battle between the provinces right now with Ottawa. That is for certain. As you've likely heard, Justin Trudeau and his Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault introducing an exemption to the carbon tax on home heating oil, mainly for the Atlantic provinces. Premiers across the country now united in calling on the Prime Minister to apply that exemption to all forms of home heating, which of course would affect us and natural gas here in Alberta. And a motion from Conservative opposition members in the House of Commons in Ottawa called for the feds to treat all provinces fairly. It was supported by the federal NDP, but it was defeated by the Liberal government in coalition with the Bloc Québécois, the separatist Bloc Québécois. In response, Rebecca Schultz, Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, calling on members of the federal government here in Alberta to put partisanship aside and do what is best for the people that they represent.
While Albertans struggle to pay their bills, the NDP Liberal MPs who are responsible and complicit for the affordability crisis that we are seeing today are now saying the concerns raised by other provinces are simply more important than those in the prairies. Our government will not stand by and watch as the federal government unilaterally decides one part of Canada with one type of home heating is worthy of a carbon tax break, while those living elsewhere in our country using another type of home heating do not. Minister Speaker, Randy Boissonnault, George Chahal, and their NDP friends across the aisle need to put politics aside and demand an end to this Ottawa knows best approach. We need to put an end to radical environmentalist policies that hurt families, hurt businesses, hurt our economy, while not at all reducing emissions. Mr. Speaker, we need to start putting common sense ahead of ideology if we ever want to actually reduce emissions while keeping Albertans' money in their wallets where it belongs. Having carved out an exemption for Atlantic Canada, Mr. Speaker, the only fair approach is for Ottawa to give Albertans and all other Canadians the same support. We can absolutely, Mr. Speaker, steward our environment, reduce emissions, invest in innovation and technology while keeping life affordable and energy reliable. Minister Boissonnault, if you are listening, as we were all watching the vote on the Conservatives' motion to choose affordability over ideology and a completely useless carbon tax, as we saw the federal NDP supported it as well, we are disappointed that you continue to stand with your ranks. You could not put ideology aside and listen to the people that you are elected to represent. Again, we continue to urge the federal government to provide exemptions for all Canadians or to axe the tax entirely. We ask you this, and once again, the members opposite, to stand for Albertans and not for Liberal NDP votes.
And Minister Schultz adding that Alberta's government will continue to stand up to Ottawa on this matter and push for the carbon tax to be scrapped. Alberta's technology sector has seen unprecedented growth that has companies and venture capital investment pouring into the province at record-breaking rates right now. The Alberta Technology and Innovation Strategy estimates that by 2030, Alberta's technology sector will contribute $5 billion annually to the provincial GDP and create 20,000 new jobs in the sector for Albertans. To support this growth and attract talent, Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sawhney has proposed changes to the Engineering and Geoscience Professions Act, and the minister joins us now to discuss it. Minister Sawhney, thank you. Great to see you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see you as well, and very pleased to be here today.
If passed, Minister, what will these changes to the Engineering and Geoscience Profession Act mean?
Well, it will be significant for the tech sector. Essentially, these changes in the legislation will allow for an exemption for the use of the title software engineer. Right now, before the legislation is passed, the only people who can use the title engineer are those who are registered with the PEGA. So once this bill passes, people who are working in the tech sector and who want to use that title will be free to do so. And certainly employers can recruit software engineers as well.
Okay, so this is probably a no-brainer to those in the tech industry, but for those of us that aren't directly involved, Minister, why is it such a big deal to be able to use that term?
It's an incredibly big deal. We are not competitive with the rest of the world. Everywhere else in the world, the title software engineer is used freely, except here in Canada. So when we spoke to our stakeholders, they came to us and they said, look, in order to attract the brightest and the best talent in the world, we need to be able to freely use this title. So that is the intention behind this bill. And of course, our technology sector is booming. We have a labor shortage, so we want our companies who are working in the Alberta ecosystem to be able to attract, again, the best and the brightest software engineers across the world.
Let's talk about the growth of the technology sector in Alberta. Maybe put into context for us, Minister, if you could, how much it is growing and how it's impacting our universities and opportunities for Albertans.
Well, we've had a record number of companies coming into Alberta and setting up their head offices. We've also had record investment in venture capital, the highest number ever historically seen in our province. So again, we know that this sector is growing incredibly fast, and they're always looking to hire people. And in terms of how this is impacting our post-secondaries, well, I have to tell you, institutions like the University of Alberta, they are the global leaders in AI, and those programs are expanding. And I'm going to brag a little bit about the post-secondaries that I visited. Actually, I did a provincial-wide tour in the past couple of months, and there are institutions like the University of Lethbridge. They have an innovation zone that has 3D printers and virtual reality simulators. And of course, NATE is coming up with an applied information technology program that allows people who have journeyman credentials to actually get into a degree program. And all of these institutions are recognizing the incredible role of the tech sector and innovation in our economy, and they're responding accordingly. So there's so many opportunities for students, and I would encourage students who might be listening to actually get online and look at some of these opportunities.
Listen, you can brag away about our universities anytime. Minister, and just as a side note, I'll share this with you, a neat story. My daughter called me this morning to inform me that she'd been accepted into the University of Calgary. So it's an exciting day in our household, too. Hey, one more question before I let you go.
Congratulations. That's great
Thank
news.
you. I will tell Allie, the minister said congratulations. Yeah, she is really excited. We had a big announcement this week to reshape healthcare in our province. I'm sure you saw or heard the interview with Minister LaGrange and with the Premier earlier. Part of that is about having frontline staff like nurses and doctors. That is such a challenge for us. How can our universities and post-secondary institutions help us with that?
Well, the post-secondaries, they have such a critical role in making sure that we are supplying those qualified, capable individuals that are going to fill that labor demand. And I can tell you within the ministry, I just made an announcement for internationally educated nurses a few weeks ago, creating almost 1,200 spaces for nurses across the province, especially in the rural communities. And certainly I also will be announcing very soon, and it's in my mandate letter, another $4 million across the province for mental health spaces. We know that we're in the throes of a mental health and addictions crisis, so this is something that is very, very timely. And I'm also right now working with post-secondaries, namely the University of Alberta and Northwest Polytech, as an example, to try to create more spaces in rural communities so that physicians can actually train there. So the post-secondaries are, again, they're critical to making sure that we are supplying those frontline workers. And those are just a few examples. There's so many more examples about what we're doing in this space.
Minister, we'll have you back on another time. There's always lots to talk about in your portfolio. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Minister of Advanced Education, Rajan Sawhney, joining us on the Alberta Update. In other news, as the price of groceries continues to be a challenge for many, Alberta's government ensuring food banks have the resources that they need to help Albertans. In an effort to increase food security for Albertans, Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, that is Jason Nixon, announcing $10 million being provided to food banks and community organizations right across Alberta. This is just the latest step in help addressing the affordability challenges that so many are facing.
Alberta's government has been proud to invest so much in being able to help with the affordability challenge. We're proud to say that we are the most significant investment of any province when it comes directly towards dealing with affordability, with $5.1 billion going towards measures to be able to help Albertans pay their bills by the end of this year. Everything from removing the fuel tax to credits on electricity bills to indexing our social services payments are all measures that Alberta has taken to be able to attempt to address and to help Albertans deal with this affordability challenge.
This funding will support community food banks as they support their own with compassion, consideration, efficiency, and effectiveness. It will fuel the trucks that deliver food in rural and remote areas where transportation is a barrier. It will purchase the refrigeration to ensure fresh milk and eggs to children whose access to such things is limited. It will heat and life the safe spaces small-town Alberta food banks provide to people needing not only food, but also community connection, resources, and understanding.
And Minister Nixon adding that although the rising cost of living has put increased pressures on many communities across the province, the government will continue to have Albertans back. Well, unusually hot, dry, and windy weather made for an early and active wildfire season in the province. It was well documented, all the challenges that we had. Due to the extreme nature of the wildfire season, 48 communities were impacted. More than 38,000 Albertans were evacuated from their homes. Alberta Wildfire, we know, worked around the clock to fight these fires, coordinating resources and helping getting people out of dangerous situations. We appreciate every single one of them, every firefighter and emergency responder who helped out, and all of the other staff to ensure the safety of Albertans. Our minister was very busy, the Ministry of Forestry and Parks, Todd Loewen, and he joins us now to talk more about this year's response and share some insights on how we tackle things going forward. Minister, thank you for taking the time. Good to see you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Minister, this was truly an unprecedented fire season. How different? Can you put it into context for us? How different was it than previous years or your typical fire season?
Well, the average for the last 5 years has been about 200,000 hectares of fire burning through the province of Alberta. This year was 2.2 million hectares burned. So basically 10 times the 5-year average. The number of fires wasn't that much different. The 5-year average is, under 1,100. We're just under 1,100 fires right now. But one of the big differences was the number of big fires. That's something that we've seen was a big increase this year. The number of large fires on the landscape. And that's what really put the test to our firefighters, our wildfire firefighters, who I have to say done a fantastic job with the job that they had to do, such a huge job. But again, with that many big fires burning and all at the same time, I think at one time we had over 100 fires going at once. And I think there was 30 that were out of control, or over 30 out of control. And that went on for days. So when we look at that kind of volume of fires, it definitely put the test to our wildfire firefighters.
Minister, I'm sure planning is already underway for next year. How can you take a season like this? What kind of lessons do you learn from it, and how can you apply them going forward to make sure things are even smoother in the years ahead?
Yeah, so we've undertaken a review already this past firefighting season just to make sure that we're on top of things and we take lessons learned from this year and bring it into next year. Well, there'll be an external review too, but those external reviews take time. We want to make sure we do this review early so that we can implement things for this coming season. And some of the things that we know we have to do, we know we have to be prepared in a bigger way earlier than what we've been in the past. We want to be able to use volunteers more and volunteer equipment more. That's something that we've came a long ways during this season, but there's more to do. New technology, for instance, is something that we used this year. We had a helicopter that had night vision that was able to go out at night, which is something that I think we're the only jurisdiction in Canada that actually had that capability this year. We're using drones more. We're sending out drones at night, taking thermal imaging of the fires so we know where the hot spots are, so we know where to send our firefighters when it becomes daylight. So we plan on doing more night work, which is a time when the fires are subdued. And we're working with municipalities to create bigger and better fire guards and make sure that they're maintained. And then working with our municipal cooperation with municipalities across the province, because when fires break out, we need to be able to work with our municipal partners.
I'm struck by the fact many of these fires happened in very rural and remote areas. That said, communication is key. How best for Albertans to get the information that they need when we're dealing with these wildfire emergencies?
Well, probably the best thing, we have the Alberta Wildfire Status Dashboard. And so that's an app that you can download on your phone, or you can go on the internet and dig that up. And that gives you a status of what's going on all the active fires in Alberta. Interesting enough, even now, there's over 70 fires that are actually on the dashboard still at this time, because there's still some fires that are smoldering, and we don't call them out until they're completely out. And we're expecting, of course, the weather from this winter to help with that. But we also do want to make sure that people listen to the emergency alerts. And municipalities are the ones that do things like evacuations. And so when emergency alerts come out, we need to make sure that people are paying attention so that they can keep themselves safe.
Well, you may have answered my last question that I had for you in that, Minister, but I'll ask anyway. Wildfire season typically ends, I think it's the end of October, but it doesn't mean it's over, does it? I mean, there are still issues to be watching out there, yes?
Absolutely. We even had a fire that started and went out of control for a short period of time just last week. So, yeah, it's November, but we still have dry conditions in some areas. We have to be careful. We know that wildfire, especially the catastrophic wildfires that we had this season, are something to be concerned about. We want to make sure that we don't have a season like this next year. And when we look at the fires that we've had, 60% are human caused on average each year. So we just got to make sure that we do our best to make sure that we're on top of things and make sure that we don't create more problems ourselves.
Minister, thank you for the work of your ministry on this. And as you said, thanks to everybody that helped keep us safe. It was an unprecedented season. Appreciate your time today.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Minister of Forestry and Parks, Todd Loewen, joining us. Well, Remembrance Day is coming right up, and it is one of the most important days of the year. It gives us all an opportunity to reflect and give thanks to those who served for us, who fought for our freedoms, and made sure, frankly, that we have the lives that we do today. Now, Remembrance Day services took place this week in Alberta's legislature. Services in communities will take place across the province. They are on Saturday, November the 11th, and we encourage everybody to take the time to get out on Remembrance Day and honor those who served, those who made the ultimate sacrifice, and thank the veterans and active members of our military who paid the price for us and are still doing it. So get out and pay tribute if you can on the 11th. Well, that does it for the Alberta Update for this edition, and giving you a firsthand look at what's happening in your province and what your Alberta government is up to. You can always view the update on YouTube, Your Alberta YouTube page, or the Premier's AB Danielle Smith. Make sure to subscribe to the Alberta Update on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, open the app, and or search Your Alberta or AB Danielle Smith and hit the subscribe button. It is literally just that easy. And that does it again for this edition of the Alberta Update. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next time.